Pre-show notes. So starting with Juliet, you wanted to talk about the ways in which modern feminism is actually harming both men and women and keeping us from what we actually are seeking. Do you want to add anything to that? Do you want to elaborate at all? Or?
Oh man, you jumped right in. I wasn't ready. Okay. I think that it's been really interesting for me over the years. Like, the dating climate was very different. I'm 38 now. So when I was single, like 10, 15 years ago, it was a very, very different world. And I feel like it's not just feminism in general, because I feel like that has a lot of meanings, right? Like, feminism 30 years ago meant something very different than it does now. But I think especially with modern feminism, I feel like men and women especially more for some reason, in my opinion, have lost sight, and I know we talked about this earlier, of what the other is actually looking for when it comes to long-term partnership. I'm not talking about short-term casual stuff. I think that's been really interesting for me. And I think it's a different world. And I think that there are a lot of women who are doing OnlyFans and sex work and all that kind of stuff and really enjoy it and are super happy. And I think that's awesome. I've also seen the flip side of it too. So I'd love to hear your ladies' perspectives on that. I don't know what your experiences have been. You seem like you're really happy with it, which is awesome. I fully support that. I'm very, I guess, kind of libertarian in that sense. I'm kind of like, do what you want. But I also agree with Brian and kind of some other people who have been on the show, where I've also seen the dark side of it. And I think going back to mommy and daddy issues, I think we laugh a lot about that, but I do think there's a lot more research coming out about how we were raised and how those family dynamics determine not just how we value ourselves, but what we tolerate and seek in those intimate relationships. Mm-hmm. That's number one. I think that secondly, I think that as I've gotten older, I think that sex means different things to different people, right? Like, for some people, I feel like sex is about getting off. And I feel like for other people, it's more about intimacy and connection. And yes, like, chemistry is very important. I know, especially like with my next partner, like, if that chemistry isn't there, I'm not interested. I do feel like that's kind of the glue that holds everything together. But I also think that sex is different for men than it is for women a lot of the time. And people denying that, I'm not saying one necessarily needs it more than the other, but it means something different. I feel like men can have sex and not get emotionally attached. I'm not saying women can't, but I do think that there is a biological predisposition there.
Yes,
and
they quite literally produce dopamine and vasopressin,
yes,
as opposed to women producing more oxytocin.
Agreed. And I don't think that has to do with feminism. I think there's some biology there that a lot of people these days, maybe with social media, maybe with new wave feminism, they're just denying that. And I think it's causing a lot of harm. And I feel like such a lame prude saying that. And 15 years ago, I was never super promiscuous, but I definitely had a very different mindset about it. I was way more kind of like free-spirited, just in my mentality, and I've really changed the older I've gotten. So I'd be interested to hear other ladies' perspectives on that.
So wait, do you think that modern femininity or feminism is like ruining sexual relationships between men and women?
Definitely.
Interesting. In some ways, yes. In some ways, yes. And I'm not like anti-sex. I'm all for, like, I have no issue with that. I really don't have any shame issues around that.
Can you give an example?
Like, an example of how it's ruining?
Of how you think, yeah.
It's an objective fact that second wave feminism contributed greatly to hookup culture.
Yes, so she just hit the nail on the head. So that's a really good point. So for example, there's a lot of research coming out, and that's my bad for not like being able to cite my sources, so I apologize, but I think it's pretty easy to look this up. But a lot of the men that are on dating apps, maybe some of the women too, generally speaking, they're not really seeking long-term partnership. The people, it doesn't matter if it's Hinge or Tinder or Plenty of Fish. I'm not saying that people can't meet on those apps and end up finding like the love of their life. I know that happens. All I can speak on is anecdotally. I'm not a scientist, but from my experience and 38 years of life, right, from a sexual marketplace value standpoint, 38 is kind of old. I don't feel old, but like, you know, I have to think like logically. Like, just from what I've seen, like it's just a very different world. And and yeah, I just feel like this idea that women can casually have sex and hook up with a lot of people and just detach themselves emotionally from that, and I'm not even talking about drugs or alcohol, I don't think that's actually possible. And I do know that the one or two one-night stands that I've had in my life, I was lying to myself, pretending that like I didn't feel anything or I didn't care. And I'm very, very grateful. That's one of the few things I got really right in my life, is figuring that out super early on, because I do think it saved me, despite my family upbringing not being perfect or my mom and dad making mistakes. Like, that's one thing I'm so grateful I learned early on in life, because I do think it saved me a lot of pain and trauma. So.